What's up everybody, welcome to HeroWatch, the series where I break down different Overwatch 2 hero candidates and evaluate their chances of one day joining the roster. Today's candidate is a longtime fan favorite, the Junkertown Queen. This brutal, charismatic mech-fighting champion has a lot going for her in terms of becoming a future hero, in addition to some rather fascinating story potential. This is Master Ian Gamer, and real quick I'd like to mention that if you enjoy this video, be sure to subscribe and chop that bell icon to both help out my channel and keep you up to date on all future Overwatch news and content. But now, let's take an in-depth look at the Junker Queen. To start, let's examine all the canon details we have for the Queen. Her initial debut was back in August of 2017, where she narrated the Junkertown map trailer.
No rules, no mercy, only the strong survive. This is your Queen. Welcome to the apocalypse.
We then got our first look at the Queen herself on various posters scattered around the map. On them, she's depicted as having a very punk appearance and wielding a massive axe. The Junkertown map also features the Queen's voice, which plays upon reaching the first and second payload checkpoints.
Welcome to Junkertown. A new challenger enters.
She even has unique voice lines for when someone is playing as Junkrat, Roadhog, Wrecking Ball, or one of the Omnic characters.
You know better than to show your face around here, Mako. You're either braver or dumber than you look to come back here, Junkrat. The champion returns. Only place for Omnics in Junkertown is on the scrap heap. Consider yourself warned.
Additionally, the Queen's throne is seen at the end of the map's payload route, with her treasure hoard room serving as the defender's final spawn. Alongside the release of the new map, Blizzard released Junkertown the Plan, a short animation featuring Junkrat and Roadhog that gives further insight into the Queen and their relation to her. In the short, Junkrat reveals a few of the possibly many reasons the two got kicked out.
What was it you think got us the boot? Stealing the Queen's cash? Blowing up her summer sack? The beatdown at the bar?
This expulsion then prompted the two to go on their notorious worldwide crime spree in an effort to con their way back into the town and assassinate her. Of course, this plan fails horribly, and they don't even get through the front gates. While the Queen doesn't make a direct appearance in this short, it does establish that the Queen knows of Junkrat and Roadhog specifically, and that they evidently have a track record of pissing her off. This relationship is further expanded upon in the Queen's next canon appearance, which is Roadhog's Wasted Land comic. In it, we learn that Roadhog and the Queen have history together, even prior to committing the transgressions referenced in the animation. When Roadhog enters Junkertown, the guard recognizes him and tells him that the Queen forbids him from carrying weapons in the city. Later, when visiting Bruce, Roadhog thinks to himself that the Queen and her people deserve whatever they get, further cementing the fact that the two harbor some level of disdain towards each other. In the latter half of the comic, Roadhog encounters some of the Queen's henchmen, who are in the process of interrogating Junkrat for details on his rumored treasure. After Junkrat draws attention to Roadhog, one of the henchmen confronts him, stating that he recognizes him and knows what he did. The henchman then goes on to tell Roadhog that he'll forget he saw him for old time's sake, so long as he doesn't interfere with their affairs, prompting Roadhog to then attack the henchman and ultimately team up with Junkrat. Like in the plan, the Queen herself doesn't make a direct appearance in the comic, but she's mentioned multiple times, and we learn that she not only has some kind of bad blood with Roadhog, but also is interested in the treasure Junkrat claims to have discovered. After the Wasted Land comic, the Queen's next, and as of now final canon appearance, was with the release of Wrecking Ball. Similar to the posters seen on Junkertown, a poster of the Queen advertising the Junkertown scrapyard can be seen in the teasers which led up to Wrecking Ball's reveal. She's also featured in his origin story, where we see her crowning him as the new mech champion, as well as in one of his sprays, which depicts this same scene. The most notable aspect of these cameos is that these are the only official color images we actually have of her. While there's quite a lot we can speculate about on the story side of the Junker Queen based on these appearances, it's important to first cover everything else we've learned about her via comments from the Overwatch developers. At Gamescom 2017, following the reveal of the new Junkertown map, the devs provided a brief synopsis of the Queen.
The Queen is a very charismatic former gladiatorial mech champion. She basically rose to power as a result of her prowess as a mech combatant in the scrapyard, and now she leads that group of survivors, the Junkers, in that area.
These same points about her being a charismatic former mech fighting champion were reiterated by Overwatch game director Jeff Kaplan and now former lead writer Michael Chu in a later video covering the story and development of Junkertown.
Nowadays, Junkertown is run by a lady called the Queen.
She has a really interesting backstory. There is a place called the Scrapyard where they watch gladiatorial combat of people driving mechs, people fighting each other, people fighting Omnics, and that is where the Queen came from. She was a really charismatic and skilled fighter.
The Queen is the boss, and all of the Junkers have to be very cautious about what they do in terms of the Queen.
Beyond this, multiple devs have teased the idea of the Queen being a future hero, and even hinted at her possible role. During a panel at San Diego Comic-Con 2018, lead hero designer Jeff Goodman asked the audience which role they thought the Queen would be, and had a rather dismissive response to the idea of her being a support. Fast forward a year and a half to the 2019 Overwatch Yule-log livestream, and Jeff Kaplan says something remarkably similar.
I wonder if the Queen is ever going to be a hero. What would she be? She's not going to be support, right? That doesn't make a lot of sense. Maybe she's a tank. She could be damage. Damage or tank would be cool.
There's some interesting points to bring up regarding these two instances, but first I should mention the final and so far most telling clue we have regarding the Queen, which came from Jeff Kaplan in a live stream interview during the 2019 Storm Rising Archives event.
Are there any plans for Junker Queen anytime soon?
Junker Queen is a character that we love. Arnold has drawn many pictures of her. She looks awesome, so there are big plans for Junker Queen. Yeah, she's somebody we very much care about and want to do cool stuff with, and we know that the players are really excited for her.
A long-term opportunity or a short-term opportunity?
I would say more on the long-term front.
Okay.
This tease in particular seems to be the most definitive proof we have for the Queen one day being a future hero. While Jeff doesn't say it outright, he does reveal that they have big plans for her going forward, and that Overwatch concept artist Arnold Sang was apparently doing a lot of artwork of her at the time. Beyond these specific examples I just mentioned, there have been a handful of other subtle mentions of the Queen by various devs over the years since her first appearance, but none of them really reveal anything further about her character or possible release. So this sums up basically all the raw information we have about the Junker Queen, which means that now it's time to enter the realm of speculation. Starting with the story side of her, perhaps the biggest question to ask is what sort of connection exists between her and Roadhog. It's pretty clearly established that even before Roadhog met up with Junkrat, him and the Queen had some kind of pre-existing relationship, with Roadhog having evidently done something to get on her bad side. Based on what one of her henchmen says, it suggested that the thing Roadhog did was a transgression against the Queen personally, as opposed to, say, committing some kind of general crime. Whatever it was he did, it was big enough for the Queen's henchmen to now recognize Roadhog and restrict him from carrying weapons within the city, though not big enough to have him outright banished, as we see happen to both him and Junkrat later on. Relating to this, a rather interesting detail to point out about the Queen is that she's actually one of only 2 characters in the entire known Overwatch universe who talks to Roadhog using his real name.
You know better than to show your face around here, Mako.
Not even Junkrat is ever heard calling him Mako. The only other character who does this is Bruce, the man whom Roadhog visits in Wasted Land. In the comic, Roadhog comments on how Bruce was once an engineer, and like himself is someone the world wants to forget. This strongly implies that Roadhog and Bruce's relationship predates the Omnium explosion which ravaged the Australian outback, and hence is why Bruce knows him as Mako rather than Roadhog. So then, does that mean the same thing could be said for the Queen? Did Mako and her know each other prior to the two of them becoming Roadhog and the Junker Queen? Making them pre-apocalypse acquaintances would certainly be an interesting direction to take, especially considering that much of Roadhog's character is based on him losing his humanity after the destruction of his homeland. Having another hero on the roster who knows his true self, or at least what his true true self used to be, unlocks a ton of character development potential for the both of them. Considering this, it's also possible then that, like Roadhog, the Queen was once part of the Australian Liberation Front, the ragtag group of outback residents who rebelled after Australia gifted their land to the Omnics. Once again, this seems incredibly plausible considering the Queen's tough, violent demeanor, and could have even played a part in her rising to rule Junkertown. Maybe she was even partially or wholly responsible for Alf sabotaging the Omnium fusion reactor, which was what ultimately led to the fallout that devastated the Australian outback. That would certainly be a reason for Roadhog to despise her after the fact, as he's seen lamenting the fate of his homeland and stating that the Queen and her people deserve what they get when fighting over its ashes. In fact, if the Queen was responsible for destroying the Omnium, then perhaps that's in some way linked to her interest in the treasure Junkrat supposedly found there. Maybe the Queen knows something about what's left in its ruins, something that she either wants for herself or just doesn't want anyone else to find out about. To be honest, this is stretching the speculation on her quite a bit, given how little detail there is to begin with, but it's food for thought. The Queen is a very intriguing character, and could quite easily be linked to some equally intriguing mysteries. But moving past the Queen's story details, there's also quite a few interesting deductions we can make about her role as an Overwatch hero, and even potential abilities in-game. Judging by her appearance alone, the Queen looks like a pretty tough character. Her massive axe suggests that she could deal massive damage, and may in fact even be melee-focused like Doomfist or Reinhardt. Digging into her backstory, her history as a scrapyard champion also suggests that she could use a mech like D.Va. It could either be the base mechanic of her kit, or possibly even be limited to just her ultimate, serving as a sort of power-up transformation on par with Winston's Primal Rage. But regardless of whether she has a mech, an axe, or some other kind of post-apocalyptic junker weapon, most people seem confident that the Queen will either be a DPS or tank hero based on her tough, rowdy appearance and personality. However, I have my own theory that the Junker Queen will in fact end up being a support hero, and let me explain why. First and foremost, the one clearly specified aspect of the Queen which most people seem to be ignoring is her charisma. Not only is she described as being charismatic by two separate developers on two separate occasions, but her speech in the Junkertown map trailer literally screams that she is someone capable of rallying her subordinates through her voice alone.
They thought they could take our land and give it to the machines? They were wrong. We won the war. And now we reap the spoils. We built a new world from the ashes. So step into the scrapyard.
This is by far the most unique characteristic of the Queen, as while we already have heroes who rally teammates and support them via sound, none of them possess the same level of intense authoritative power heard coming from the Queen. She isn't called the Queen for nothing. She rules Junkertown with an iron fist. While she clearly is more than capable of holding her own in a fight, we also see that she's just as easily capable of making others do her dirty work. Why do something yourself when you can make others do it for you? And as brutal as this sounds, it's an attribute which would fit best for a hero in the support category. While it's far from the conventional image of a supporting character, think of a Warcrier or any other character archetype where one unit serves to embolden all their teammates. This type of support role fits perfectly with what we've heard and seen from the Junker Queen, making her something along the lines of being an angry Lucio. And that doesn't mean she can't also be capable of dealing damage. Look at Brigitte or Moira, who can hold their own while also healing their team. Adding the Queen as another support hero with offensive capabilities could greatly help to diversify and expand the options within the support category. In fact, as many of you know, I've previously made an entire Junker Queen hero concept based on this exact idea. If you haven't seen it, I recommend that you check it out through the cards on screen after watching this video. Now, I'm sure many of you will also bring up what the devs have said previously about the Queen's role. Both Jeff Goodman and Jeff Kaplan posed the question of whether she'd be a DPS or tank, but dismissed the idea of her being a support. However, anyone who's paid even the slightest attention to Jeff Kaplan over the years knows that he can be a bit of a deadpan jokester, especially when it comes to teasing future heroes and content. If the devs internally have an idea for making the Queen a support hero, and are obviously aware that the vast majority of the Overwatch community expects her to be a tank or DPS, then I'd be surprised if they didn't play along with everyone's expectations with the sole intent of making her eventual release as a support all the more surprising. Keep in mind, neither Jeff has explicitly said that the Queen won't be a support, but instead just rhetorically suggested that she doesn't seem like one. And judging by how much Blizzard loves to catch their player base off guard, the Queen seems like a prime candidate for them to pull yet another surprise twist. However, only time will tell if this ends up being the case. We could certainly see her fitting into any of the roles, but we'll just have to wait and see. And with that, let's get on to the Junker Queen's new hero candidate score. Considering her massively popular character design, evident story ties, and potential to flesh out the Junker faction, along with the Overwatch dev team's acknowledgement of wanting to do more with her in the future, I'm sure that none of you will be surprised to see me give the Junkertown Queen a 5 out of 5 on the scale of new hero probability. For all intents and purposes, she's basically confirmed to be an upcoming hero, and the only question is when exactly we'll see her join the Overwatch 2 roster, and what sort of mechanics and abilities she'll bring to the game. Once again, I recommend you check out my full Junker Queen hero concept video, which I'll have linked in the cards and description, but otherwise I would love to hear your thoughts on the Queen, her abilities, and history with Roadhog, so be sure to drop a comment down below. Subscribe, chop that bell, follow me on Twitter at MasterENGamer, and check out my Discord server to never miss any future Overwatch news and content. If you'd like to support my channel, then you can hit that join button down below to earn some cool rewards like the people you see here. This is MasterENGamer signing off, and until next time, have a great day.